Hey guys, welcome back to RetroActive.
Welcome back.
We're on to week 4.
Week 4,
Or
I know.
episode 4 today.
Wow, it's been pretty much a month now?
It has been exactly 1 month.
Wow. Awesome. So we're doing good so far. You know, we haven't given it up yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
So here on the show, as if you've been listening, we do talk a lot about, very very current things, but also things in the past. And if you have a feeling we haven't been doing that as much lately about, nostalgic stuff, just wait a little bit.
Just wait.
We'll be doing that today.
What do we have, Joey? What were we going to talk about today?
Well, we were going to talk about Deadpool. I don't know if you still want to do that or not.
Yes, of course. Why would I not want to talk about Deadpool?
As our first order of business, we're going to go way back to yesterday.
Oh man, yeah, that's
when we
in
went
the
to go
past.
see the movie.
That's nostalgic. I still remember that.
Yeah.
It was what?
I have a longing for the meal I ate yesterday.
It was less than 12 hours. No. Okay, no, it was more than 12 hours ago. Sorry. I was like less than 24 hours ago though. So we saw it last night.
Yeah. So Deadpool, as I'm sure everyone and their mother has heard about, has been breaking a whole crap load of records recently.
It's a huge success.
Yeah, it was kind of
that's surprising actually.
It was a little bit of a surprise, but also not.
Yeah.
Just people weren't quite sure exactly if it would even get that success. But let me rattle off just a couple of records that it
Go
broke.
for it. Fire off.
Number 1 in February,
Mm-hmm.
all-time opening weekend. Number 1 in R-rated opening weekends.
That's important actually to
This
remember.
one's also interesting. Number 1 opening weekend for 20th Century Fox.
For a Fox movie in
Yeah,
general?
so 20th Century Fox has never had a bigger opening than Deadpool has.
Interesting. That's kind of funny actually.
And maybe this one might not sound nearly as great, but it's number 5 in Marvel opening weekends.
Oh, number
So
5.
every
Yeah.
Marvel movie ever made is number 5 out of all of them.
Yeah. That's a little less surprising to me, I think, cuz to me Deadpool was kind of a niche character. The way I think about Deadpool and think about how he relates to the rest of the Marvel universe is kind of not quite as strong of a feeling as I had with Guardians of the Galaxy when that came out. Like who the hell are these guys?
Yeah, it was. I think Guardians was even more of a
nobody knew
even
who
further
they were.
off than Deadpool.
Exactly, but with Deadpool, he's still always been a side character for the most part. I mean,
he wasn't in his own universe.
Yeah.
He existed within X-Men.
Exactly,
at the very least.
But he was never really that, as far as I know, because I haven't read all the comics, but he was never really that big of a part of the X-Men. I don't think he ever was an X-Men.
No.
He might have been part of
just had cameos, I'm sure.
Yeah, but damn, that's pretty huge.
So yeah, people are turning out in droves to see this movie, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, I was looking up some of the articles too about the movie, about the opening weekend too, and some people were saying too it's officially, I think is it officially the most successful superhero movie of all time? Because
all time,
I mean, looking at how much it's made in terms of how much money it's brought in, even though it's like number 5 all time for Marvel movies, considering it was made on a budget of like $58 million.
Yeah,
it made 132 its opening weekend, so it made double its budget just in the first
well, if
weekend.
you want to get into mathematics about it and whether or not the percentage of its profits as compared to its budget, there's a lot of numbers. You can go to Box Office Mojo for all
We're not
that.
math majors here.
You don't need to be a math major.
Accounting major? We're not accounting majors either.
No,
like our other friends are.
but I think just the main idea for this is that it was quite a surprise.
Yeah,
it seems like a nice thing for the Marvel universe to have, just along with Guardians of the Galaxy, to kind of shake things up.
Yeah, definitely. To me, the more interesting thing now is not really about it's obviously going to get a sequel, I think, at this point, based on I think it was already greenlit. After the first weekend, they greenlit a sequel at Fox. But to me, the more interesting idea going forward. I mean, I know we were just talking about looking back at the past, but I mean, for this, looking at the future is
you're ruining.
Yeah, well, think
you're
about
ruining
it.
this whole.
How is this?
Channel.
How is this going to affect the way that Fox does their superhero movies from now on? Because think about the licenses that Fox owns. They own X-Men, and they own Fantastic Four.
Oh, two wonderful franchises that have been taken great care of recently, I'm sure.
Yes, but if you think about it, like now that they realize that they can get away, they can do like a more comedic, a more gory, R-rated, adult themed superhero movie. How is that going to affect the new X-Men franchises, or the new, like, if they decide that they want to go back and redo Fantastic Four? So
I honestly don't think it will happen at all for those movies, just because with Deadpool, all of the R-rated, raunchiness and everything that people expect of it, it comes from its own source material.
That's true.
It's not like the Fantastic Four had some
fourth
seedy underbelly of like comics that people didn't find until later, that they dug up, and there's like sex going on in there. At least I'm not. I don't think.
I don't know. They've had a long history. We may have not seen those before.
But for the most part, Deadpool kind of exists in a bubble where its raunchiness and all those like sex jokes, it exists only for them.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a studio is gonna see that and be, oh, we need that in X-Men now.
Yeah,
that doesn't seem plausible at all.
Yeah, I mean, I guess X-Men too. It's like it makes enough money already that they don't really need to resort to selling it a different way to get more people into it.
Well, they've tried changing it a little bit, I think, just from movie to movie, but not something as drastic as incorporating Deadpool, like comedy and all that.
Yeah, I mean, for me too, it's like I feel like it's really important too to point out that this is like an R-rated movie. I mean, normally with these kinds of movies, they try to actually step it back so that they can get a lower rating, like a PG-13 or a PG
so more
rating.
people will see it.
Yeah, so not only more people will see it, but I mean, think about the way too that works with the marketing. It's like this movie can't be marketed towards kids the way that, like, say, Avengers is marketed towards kids. You see like Avengers backpacks and Avengers action figures,
bunch of toys and McDonald's figurines.
Yeah, but it's like, how could they do that for Deadpool when it's an R-rated movie? You're not gonna like put out Deadpool figures for like little kids, and then the little kids are like, oh, I want to go see the movie.
Yeah, like they have. Well, the thing is, they haven't been doing that. They've been really. I feel like they've been really smart in marketing Deadpool.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the very specific ways that they have, like using their what was it?
You're talking about like the posters?
Yeah, like the posters for one. That's something that it's a sign that they're not taking it as seriously.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how you should take a Deadpool movie.
Yeah.
To begin with.
It's hilarious how I don't know how self-aware it is too, and how it basically, it's not only self-aware, but it makes fun of all that too.
Yeah.
They poke so many jokes at, like, talking about like the real life actors and the fact that, like, oh, well, there's different timelines in like the X-Men universe, and it gets confusing now because you've rebooted it already and stuff like that.
Okay, well, before we get into that, I want to we should just say if we liked the movie or not. Will?
I liked it a lot. I actually thought it was very well done. I mean, for me, I don't know that much about Deadpool as a character. Like I said, I didn't read too many of the comics with him in it, but from what I know, it's like it basically took all the things I did know about Deadpool, and it made it very, very much. It translated very well to the screen. It's sometimes really hard to do stuff like that, where especially when it comes to like breaking the fourth wall and making humor out of stuff like that. But it did it very well, and so I actually really liked it. That probably is one of maybe one of my top 5, if not top 5 or top 10 superhero movies. Now it made that
ever
list. Yeah,
like
totally.
From the beginning of time till now.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, maybe one day we'll do a little top 10 there, and I can rattle them all off. But for now, I'm fairly comfortable in saying that it's probably up there.
Okay.
So what about you, Joey? What did you think?
Well, if we are being completely honest, and am I protected under this umbrella here inside?
Do not feel free to tell the truth, because you're not going to get lynched for it. It's like we're not arguing on some forum on the internet, so we're just putting our voices out there.
Well, if I get nasty comments about it, I'm going to blame you.
Well, they'll all be directed at you, so whatever. That's fine.
Okay, well, I thought it was actually quite a bit underwhelming.
Yeah?
I didn't like it as much as I thought I would. But here, I'll go into a couple reasons, like both good and bad for the movie. So one thing I really did like about the movie was that it was very consistent
Mm-hmm.
in the way it looked. So we all know that the movie was made on a pretty low budget.
Yeah.
And when you get to that low of a budget for something like a big, CGI action, like superhero movie, things can get a little bit dicey, I think.
Right. You can kind of see where they start to
cut corners, right?
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, when you have like a big budget, like 200 million, like the Avengers, and you go and watch that movie and you see all the CGI and it just becomes a bit gratuitous, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's where those kinds of movies go wrong. What Deadpool did was that I feel like they made a very good consistency between the look of the film and the way the CGI looked in that.
Right.
And one of the big advantages it had was that it had a director, Tim Miller, who he actually came from he has an animation background. He was a director for animated movies.
Yeah.
Before he went and opened the studio that made this film.
What else has he done? Because that's not a
I
name
actually
I
have no
recognize.
idea.
Okay. Yeah. Because
I didn't actually look him up. All I know is that he has a background in animation, VFX, and 3D modeling and all that. So the fact that he was able to direct this and make it look cohesive.
Yeah.
Like I was looking at all the CGI. Yeah, it did. Obviously you can tell when stuff is CGI and when it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
But when you can't tell if like they're the actual actors.
Like like his mask maybe. Like
yeah,
I felt like his mask was kind of CGI,
or just like the whole look of it just seemed unreal to me.
Yeah.
Which I think helped it a lot.
Exactly. It kind of gave it a little bit more of a comedic effect as well, because that was part of the thing is he's got a mask on. How do you translate the emotion, like just like the just a squinting
eyes, like the
and
squinting of
stuff.
the eyes, it might not have been I'm pretty sure that was not built into the mask.
Exactly.
And like the whites of his eyes and all that.
Yeah. But it was very well done. That was something I was paying attention to a lot of when we actually saw the movie, and I was like, you know what? Actually, that looked fairly spot on. I mean, you could barely tell. I think it was CG. I mean, it was one of those things where if you weren't really paying that close of attention, you might not even think about it.
I know that's where I feel the movie is really strong.
Yeah.
Like this movie's ability to look consistent and look good for what they paid for it.
Right.
It's a testament to all the crew's experience in animation and whatever field that they were in before. It really showed.
Yeah, because it's something that the director himself has a very good eye for.
Yeah.
Whereas some other directors might just focus strictly on the actors and then give it to the post production crew and be like, all right, your guys' job.
And then they're just
in
a sea of CGI like around them, and it just doesn't look right.
Right. What else didn't you like about it?
What didn't I like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because you were saying it's like, it was underwhelming. So
okay. Well, one more thing that I'll say I did like is that I liked just how much they embraced the goofiness of the character. And one of the concerns going into the movie that I'm sure a lot of people had was how close to the comic book would they keep this character?
Yeah. Because
the thing is with Deadpool, like you go to conventions and you'll see cosplay, and this cosplay it's basically they can do whatever they want because they know that Deadpool can do anything
exactly
pretty much in his comics and his movies or whatnot.
And that's what he really does too, right? I mean, I think that's part of the joke of it. I think is that he can do anything.
Yeah,
he
can wander between like any franchise pretty much, and that's okay with
exactly.
That's okay with them.
It's not a weird thing to see him all of a sudden in this comic and be like, "Hey, what's up? I'm here."
Yeah, so I think they did a pretty good job handling that.
Mm-hmm.
But first, let me go back to the CGI aspect and the way the film looked. So this is the negative stuff that I have about the movie.
All right, we're gonna rewind it. Let's go.
Okay, so one of the things that I didn't quite like about the movie was the way it looked. Yeah, okay, it looked cohesive and it had a very consistent look to it, but it just felt very lifeless to me. Because when I think of Deadpool, I think of his personality and the way he just how colorful he is as a character, and I feel that could have translated better into how the film looked.
Right.
Because if you think about it, one of the films that you can probably compare to is Guardians of the Galaxy, because it has a similar comedic level to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And that film, it was set in space, but it had a lot more color to it, and it felt a lot more vibrant, which matched the tone of it.
There were a lot more wider shots too, with like bigger cityscapes and everything, or even when they were in the prison and everything.
Yeah,
there
just
was,
the
tons
whole
of
like grading of the film. It looked alive.
Yeah,
and Deadpool looked kind of flat to me, just because a lot of it was kind of gray and brown. It was very. I was expecting more than the typical superhero origin story kind of look to it.
Yeah, and it did. That's kind of what it did have. That's true. I mean, a lot of the locations were just kind of like really like closed off, sort of like interiors. There's like they were they're in a bar, or they're in like
on a freeway or something. There wasn't a lot of there weren't a lot of chances for it to look really, really good.
Yeah. I think they tried to maybe do that towards the end of the movie. Like there's that big set piece where they're on top of like this aircraft carrier and everything. But even then,
it's just an aircraft carrier.
It's kind of a junkyard.
In a junkyard. That doesn't really help it that much either.
Yeah, exactly. It almost looked like a stage right out of Marvel vs. Capcom though.
Yeah, I thought that thing that they were on was the helicarrier.
I thought
the
so
Shield helicarrier.
Too, but that goes into like a different thing where it's like, all right, well that's a different license that I don't think that they can use.
Yeah, well, they could use it if they wanted to. And then the other thing that kind of bothered me was, I guess, the changes in tone of the movie, because it does have its moments where it has like these really outlandish jokes and really weird like fourth wall breaking stuff, but at the same time it jumps between that and very just serious typical superhero movie stuff, like with the bad guy.
Yeah. Because they have to set that up though.
I know.
think that's sometimes the problem with making movies for for as wide of an audience as you can. You kind of have to. They kind of wind up having to fall back on those sort of formulaic storytelling,
especially because this is an origin story.
Yeah,
and it needs to refresh everyone's memory as well as introduce his characters to all these new fans.
Yeah, and also make you feel for the character too, because I mean, Deadpool's not like your typical sort of superhero kind of guy.
No.
I mean, he's like very wisecracking. He swears a lot, and he makes a lot of like dick and fart jokes too. I think a lot of times, but and he even says it himself quite often. I think in like the movie and the comics, like he's not a hero.
Yeah,
and he very much tries to reinforce that, but.
Like even though he says himself that he's not a hero, he still goes through a lot of the same tropes that a superhero movie does.
Yeah, exactly. He goes through like the rise and everything. He goes through the fall.
The fight scenes. I feel like you could take them out of this movie and put them into any other movie.
Oh,
and it would look the same.
Oh yeah.
Like, well, the one I was thinking probably was the one with Colossus, and that one kind of was just okay. No one's getting hurt here.
Yeah, because they're both like pretty much indestructible. One's made of metal, the other one's got super strength. But if you haven't seen the movie already, we might be glossing over a couple of these points. That might not really sound like they make too much sense yet, but go see the movie and then they will.
You'll understand that they're spoilers. But one of the things I thought of was that including all of these fight scenes that just seem a little bit stale to me. I feel like they want it to be something more than that, but they might not have had the opportunity to. And I feel like in the sequel, which is what I'm hoping for, is that they really push it to the limit with scenes like those.
Yeah, I think maybe too they. Now that they've shown that movies like this can be successful too, maybe they'll get that opportunity. They'll get that chance.
So the last thing I want to talk about about the movie was that, how it is an origin film and it does need to cater to three. It needs to cater to three categories: the people who really like the character and will go to see it regardless. The people who have no idea who Deadpool is and are going to see it because they're either dragged in there by another person or they're curious about the character. And then 3, which is where I feel like I lie. People who know about the character and are curious to see if this movie will do it any justice from what they know. And I feel like the first 2 are the the ones that are going to really, really like this movie.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they, in the first category, they're fans. They get this is their wish fulfillment right here.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, this is everything that they wanted to have in a Deadpool movie, and they got it. And then for all the other ones, strangers who have no idea what this is something that's completely different and completely refreshing, I feel, compared to a lot of other movies that are
exactly. You go back even just like the last 2 or 3 years, the amount of like, Marvel movies and DC movies that have come out. They've all kind of taken that Batman Begins and the Dark Knight kind of style of storytelling.
Yeah,
now, where
like
it's
the quote unquote gritty reboot.
Exactly, and it's like now, but the thing is now there's too much of that going on with all of these movies, and I feel like that was, I feel like that's also why I liked Ant-Man, which we saw like last year so much.
Really?
Yeah, because it did feel a little more refreshing at times, because it did kind of like start to go down that comedic route. Not as much as Deadpool did, but it was refreshing that that Marvel's Phase 2 ended on that kind of a note, rather than having Avengers be like, that's the end of this, like that was a bookmark for this chapter of the MCU.
Go on.
Well, I mean, we can kind of I could talk a lot about Marvel and the MCU because, growing up too, I was a huge Marvel fan. I had a lot of the comics. I watched a lot of the TV shows. I had so many freaking toys. Pretty unbelievable. And of course, growing up too, we played a lot of those Marvel games, especially Marvel vs. Capcom. Marvel vs. Street Fighter, X-Men vs. Street Fighter.
I love those games, but I wasn't as big of a Marvel fan. I don't know. There was something about the games that made it refreshing.
Yeah.
Crossover games are always very fun, I feel.
Yeah. So, we can go back and talk a little bit about that stuff, because I feel like with a lot of what Marvel's doing in general anyway with their cinematic universe, how it's all connected now. On the one hand, for me, as like a huge fan of like all of those franchises and series, that's so cool. Like when they came out and they were saying that like we're going to connect all of these franchises together.
You didn't feel like, oh my God, how am I gonna handle all of this?
Well, the funny thing is, I'm starting to feel that way now. But back then, like when it
was a good idea at the time. It was so cool.
Like when the first Avengers movie came out, I was like, oh yes, this is what I wanted.
Yeah, actually, come to think of it, when they came out with Iron Man and then Thor and Captain America, and they announced that, I was like, this might be cool.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Avengers, and I actually really enjoyed that first movie.
Yeah, the first one was awesome.
And then after that, it just kind of got like, okay, now I have to keep watching every single one of these movies.
Exactly.
Or else I can't watch the ones like the next Avengers movie.
Exactly.
Like, in order for you to watch Avengers 2, you had to have watched almost pretty much every single movie before that, in addition to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the TV show.
I know. I'm actually still catching up on that. I'm on the first season of it. And because now I haven't had time to catch up with the TV shows. And the funny thing is, looking back at that now, that is it's basically... The problem with the MCU now is the same problem that like the mainline comic series. It's the problem that people have with the mainline comics. They just go so far back, and there's so much storytelling to do from the 1950s and 60s.
Good Lord.
That it is almost impossible now to catch up with all of that as a new reader. So for example, if you're just now kind of coming into the Marvel universe, if you want to be able to watch what's the next movie coming out? Doctor Strange, or let's say Civil War.
Black Panther or Civil War.
Yeah, let's say you wanted to start with Captain America 3, Civil War. You got to go back and you got to watch
Why would you start with that?
That's half a dozen movies. There's
at least
yeah.
You got 2 Thor movies, 2 Captain America movies, 3 Iron Man movies, 2 Avengers.
Jesus Christ, that actually is about a dozen.
Was there anything I'm missing? The Hulk?
Ant-Man.
Oh, Ant-Man.
Hulk. Actually, Hulk was part of it. Or the Incredible Hulk. There were 2.
That was right before they started the universe, I think.
I think the Edward Norton
because they still had
one
Edward
counts.
Norton.
No, but the Edward Norton one counts.
Really?
Yeah, it's just that he didn't want to sign on to do a million other movies. Because
that was a smart decision on his part.
It was a smart decision. Now Mark Ruffalo is probably that's all he's ever going to do now is play the Hulk. But yeah, it's there's so many movies, and we're not even talking about all right, there's 2 seasons of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. There's now, I think they're on the 2nd season of Agent Carter. and there's a season each of Jessica Jones and Daredevil with the second one coming.
My God.
How much stuff is that? That's so many hours just to catch up with the current movies.
I know. It's almost like a little bit of oversaturation. I think.
It reminds me a lot of so back when the Spider-Man movies were still out, like the original like Tobey Maguire ones.
Yeah.
I tried to get back into like Marvel Comics by starting with they had a line of comics that started printing in 2000, the Ultimate Marvel series. It was kind of their idea of it was their first, I think, really big reboot of all of their franchises. It was when Marvel was saying like, all right, we've been doing comics since like the golden age in the 50s and 60s, but we need a way to make these more relevant to like readers now who are people like us who were born in like the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
We still grew up with some of the comics and stuff, but we kind of came into those really late.
Yeah, we there weren't as many origin stories at that point.
Exactly. They were already well established. And I mean, some of these characters have like died and come back from the dead and stuff, like all this Dragon Ball Z type shit.
I remember reading when I think I was maybe like 12 years old, I saw a comic book, and it was the death of Superman. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess he's dead now.
He's dead.
I just kept on living my life thinking that he wouldn't come back anymore.
Yeah.
Until I saw him on TV. I'm like,
it's like, oh, he's still alive.
Okay, well, sure, I'll accept it.
Yeah. So, and that was the thing, I think, that was the conundrum that Marvel had back in those days. So they came out and they were like, all right, we are gonna reboot all of our popular franchises like Fantastic Four, X-Men, Spider-Man, and we're gonna make them like fresh and new for today's generation of readers. And so that's what Ultimate Marvel is. I started reading Ultimate Spider-Man back in college, and it was basically like, oh, he's still in high school as a kid, but it's like, hey, he's not like instead of just playing a photographer, he's a website designer for the Daily Bugle and stuff.
Oh.
And all of that, all that stuff. And there's like the internet and
so
like
just trying
cell
to
phones.
bring it back or bring it forward into the into the present day for new readers.
Exactly. Kind of like how with like a lot of shows today, everybody's got social media and Facebook and Twitter and everything.
Like Supergirl is kind of based off of that too, I think.
Exactly. So it was the same thing, but I mean the whole idea too is now like I've been trying to collect these comics for a while now, like the trade paperbacks.
Mm-hmm.
But now there are so many series. It's gone on for so long, and I think they actually ended it at a certain point with the current crop of Marvel comics.
Ooh.
But it's still, at this point in time, I might as well just not even keep collecting it because there's so much material.
You're just going to go broke.
Yeah, it's like at $20, like a trade paperback, that's a lot of money to spend trying to catch up.
It's you just got to give up the ghost. That's all.
It's like oh my God. Yeah. So that's kind of the conundrum I think that is going on with Marvel right now. Like I talk to Joss about it all the time. And it's just like she hasn't seen like a lot of the she hasn't seen the Captain America movies. She hasn't seen the Thor movies. So I mean, she'll go to see it because she's one of those people, like you said, like one of those types of people who knows the characters and they know like the stories from before,
mm-hmm.
and they want to see how it's see how it's
interpreted,
done, and how it's interpreted. So she'll go see Civil War. She'll go see the Infinity Wars movies, mainly because I want to see them.
Mm-hmm.
But she hasn't really caught up with all of the other movies, or let alone the TV shows.
Yeah, I think one of the main problems with a lot of superhero movies is they kind of expect the viewer to know not just a little bit about the characters, but a lot, especially when you get that deep into the series of like, the MCU. Like, you need to know what has been going on.
Yeah.
And I think that's what tarnishes some of the later movies, in that you can't view them as a standalone movie anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It needs to be watched within the context of everything else.
Exactly.
And I think that's why I've gotten really tired of these kinds of connected universe movies. If you want to talk about a movie that a comic book movie that I really, really enjoyed, and it could stand alone just by itself, is Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yeah,
because that is probably the best, not only comic book but also video game themed movie I've ever seen. And a lot of it has to do with the way it approaches the material. It doesn't expect the reader to know who this person is or what they've done in the past or any of the books, because it's presented with such, like, I don't want to say basic, but they really simplify just who this person is and like what all these things mean to this person.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that they kind of take the first 3 books and translate them, pretty much verbatim almost. Like, almost the lines are all the same. Like even the cinematography is very similar. Like, and they take a lot of the video game references even, and they throw it right in there too.
Yeah, like if you can go panel by panel for some parts of some shots in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I haven't read the comics all the way, but actually at all.
Oh,
but
okay.
I've seen,
well, I have.
Okay, but you probably knows better than I do, but that
Let me tell you something.
There are like a lot of frames in there. You can like just cut it out and like lay it over the movie.
It is
and
it's
exactly
same.
the same.
Yeah.
And that's just how good, Edgar Wright is in bringing the source material onto film.
Yeah, he does it in such a way too where it's like it still remains very cinematic. I mean, exactly, if for people who already had read Scott Pilgrim or who went back and read it afterwards, exactly like which shots are, pretty much frame for frame shots from the comics.
Yeah.
Like I think of that one, there was one shot in the movie where Scott's kind of like standing there and like on the street, like banging his head against a pole. And like every time he hits his head, you actually see the sound effect come out like clonk, clonk. That is directly from the comic, shot.
So they just, in essence, they do a really good job in keeping it as true to the source material as possible, all the way down to like the framing of the shots, the sound effects and little touches like that.
Yeah,
like the text overlays and everything. Like that's something that I feel like can't really be done anymore because people are expecting, at least with the Marvel movies, to be consistent in this world. They can't really have something that looks like Scott Pilgrim all of a sudden inserted into there.
Exactly, because it would throw such a weird wrench in the reality that they've kind of already built with these movies and the style that everyone's come to expect.
Yeah, and that's why I think standalone movies, I guess kind of like Deadpool, since it doesn't have a backstory to begin with, but especially with Scott Pilgrim, those movies can do really, really well. Maybe not financially because Scott Pilgrim kind of bombed.
Yeah, but it did. But man, I
visually is what I'm talking about, and they can succeed really, really well with having their own universe just contained in this one movie, not spread out over all these other ones that they have to keep consistent with.
Yeah, it's funny too when you mention that in particular, and having the standalones, and like going back to talking about Deadpool and talking about too the importance of doing a movie that's also like not only R-rated but made more for mature audiences, namely adults.
Okay.
Marketing for not for kids but for adults. I read an article the other day about that where people are wondering, well, will this maybe open the door for other mature rated graphic novel and comic series? One that I'm a big fan of, that I was thinking of immediately, was Neil Gaiman's Sandman series, published by Vertigo in DC.
No.
I'm
just gonna say no because I don't know.
Well, there's a little backstory. So I guess Neil Gaiman, he got his start, I guess, in doing television and comics. He's a really prolific author now. Like he's done the Sandman series. He's done a lot of novels like Neverwhere, American Gods, and Stardust, and things like that. I mean, I don't think anything that's really been like. He's like a British writer, so nothing that's really...
so they're never going to make anything of his
nothing that's
in
really
America.
been translated to the screen or anything like that here in America.
Stardust, didn't they make a movie?
Stardust,
Unless that was another movie also named Stardust?
No, that was based on his book.
Okay.
But it was, that was one. But, he got really popular in comics for doing the series called The Sandman. It was supposed to be a remake, like a reboot or a remake of, a reimagining is a better word, of a character... like another superhero character from back in like the World War II days.
Spider-Man Sandman, right?
No, not that one. It was like his own. He was actually...
is he not literally made of sand?
No, he's not literally made of sand. Not like that one. He was supposed to be some kind of guy. He wears like a gas mask and he goes around like using some magic powder to put people to sleep or something like that.
That sounds really gentle.
Yeah, but Neil Gaiman's imagining was that he's he makes up one of these beings called the Endless, and they represent different states of like human emotion or whatever. Like he represents dream, and he's got other brothers and sisters like destruction, delirium, death, and these represent all the different states of like human emotions, consciousness, or whatnot, and it's something that would be very hard to translate to the screen. But I mean, I'm sure that the possibilities now are there, certainly, and I'm sure like with how a lot of these studios are trying to like go back and mine source material from places, that like that's certainly a topic of conversation now that they might even be having.
Yeah,
is translating something like that's intended for like adults and that's more mature and more serious storytelling.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, just because you have serious storytelling within the source material does not mean it needs to translate into that on film.
Yeah.
Because I'll throw it back to one of my favorite superhero movies ever. Since we are, a nostalgia-based podcast, I'll go all the way back.
Let's go back.
1994.
Okay.
For The Mask.
Oh, The Mask.
The Mask.
Right, Jim Carrey.
And I mentioned that just because in the comic book he is insane
mm-hmm.
and he kills people and all that.
Jesus, really?
Yeah, but in the movie, it's PG-13, so they don't do as much. It's played a lot goofier.
Yeah.
Just because they do have Jim Carrey. And I'll ask you, would you consider that a superhero movie?
I mean, that's just like, looking back on it, obviously now I'm kind of judging it against other things that,
have come out since then.
Yeah, come out since then. And obviously, like, I would probably say no, actually.
Okay.
But of course, back when it did come out, it's like, yeah, it's a superhero movie because, he gains those superpowers based on like an item like that. So much like, what was that Billy Zane one?
Billy Zane?
Yeah, like
what?
he was in a superhero movie. I forgot what it was called. Where he was in like the purple outfit with the black mask and everything.
Oh, I don't remember.
But yeah, that was another movie.
That was also in the 90s.
In the
right?
90s, it was a 90s movie.
Well,
yeah.
I mean, in The Mask, he literally says, "I could be a superhero," and he goes off with that.
You obviously remember this movie better than I do.
This was one of the movies that I watched like nonstop as a kid, and it never really occurred to me back then how many of the superhero tropes in today's movies they also applied to this movie as well.
Oh, okay. They were still pretty much like in use back then.
Yeah, because when the main character, Jim Carrey's character Stanley, like he's just a normal like banker, nice guy.
Yep.
His great power comes within this mask, and whenever he puts it on, it turns him into this exaggerated version of himself who can pretty much do whatever it wants. Yeah, he becomes this being with powers, but at the same time, he kind of lacks any responsibility. Like kind of like the opposite of Spider-Man.
Yeah,
with great power.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Well, that was it Deadpool's tagline? With great power comes great irresponsibility. I feel like that applied to The Mask as well.
Right.
Just because he was able to do whatever he wanted. He didn't have any. It didn't seem like he had any. What's the word for it? Like a conscience.
Right.
I mean, he
just like kind of.
I guess it was because of his. It's an exaggeration of his existing personality. So it's not like he would go and kill people if the original Stanley didn't want to do that to begin with.
Yeah, it's not like that. He was that type of guy.
But he did go out and if you remember in the beginning of the movie, the guys who scammed him at the car mechanic place, the first thing he does when he gets out, goes back there and sticks some pipes through their he impales them with the pipes. Yeah. And they're still alive, but that's what he goes and does.
Jeez, I'm gonna have to go watch this movie again, with a fresh set of eyes there. I don't remember a lot of that movie, but
the thing is that I feel like it inspired. I guess I wouldn't say that this movie was directly influenced. Was a direct influence to movies nowadays. But it has the same idea that Stanley fears the mask when he doesn't have it on.
Yeah.
But he really can't resist the idea that all the insecurities that he had before are completely gone. And things like Batman, and The Dark Knight, when they really started analyzing like what it meant to be a superhero.
Right.
Like people praise The Dark Knight for looking into that and kind of, subverting the superhero genre a little bit. But I mean, The Mask did it 14 years earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you could look back at that as being a kind of a precursor to all that.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
all the
if
modern
that's, if
superhero
that's
movies.
not a superhero trope, what he feels about The Mask, then I don't
Yeah.
know what is.
It's true.
Yeah,
It's
I
true.
feel like just a lot of my favorite superhero movies come from movies about people who aren't supposed to be superheroes to begin with.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's become a common trope too. It's just like people who feel that like even if I think that's something that they take a look at in some series too, people who have like these powers, but it's like, they're not really, it's like, oh, I'm not like a hero. I'm not, I was just kind of given these
well,
things.
the thing is, I feel like they're doing that just recently.
Yeah.
I think it started with the new Batman series,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of just, oh, look at all these people who are doing it, and let's do it as well.
Yeah.
Just like with Guardians of the Galaxy is kind of like that, just a bunch of misfits, and then upcoming Suicide Squad.
Oh yeah.
Where they have all the villains.
Take all the villains and bad guys.
Yeah,
and then it's
which
like,
is not
let's
a
go
bad
save
thing,
the
since
world.
I feel like those kinds of movies can be a little bit more colorful in their
Yeah,
worlds.
oh, definitely.
Like literally more colorful.
Yeah. You look at like freaking like Harley Quinn's, like all the makeup and all the colors.
Yeah,
and everything.
and if you've seen Suicide Squad's advertisement
Mhm.
compared to Batman versus Superman,
Yep.
it is like night and day there. Suicide Squad is really vibrant. Like
Yep.
all their posters have all this color, and it exudes all this personality that you'd expect from a movie like that.
Yeah, and even the
Whereas-
trailer. Even
Yeah,
the trailer the way we
trailer's
saw it.
fun.
They
to
have
watch.
like they're playing Bohemian Rhapsody in the
Yeah.
trailer that we saw last night, whereas it's not some sort of like Inception style like gongs going off or some just like deep bass songs. Like,
basically the typical trailer
Yeah.
movie music. And yeah, that's why I feel that Batman vs Superman might not do as well as people are hoping, because it's just going to fall under the same realm as all the other ones before it.
Yeah, so that's kind of like what I've never really been that big a fan of DC, and honestly it's like even though I like the Man of Steel and like the newer movies, kind of the direction that they're going, it still doesn't feel quite. It just feels like they're sort of riding on those kind of same coattails that have already been done. And as far as I know, like the Batman movies too, like Batman Begins, Dark Knight, and everything, they're not really connected to their like supposed new like extended
it's
universe.
not at all.
Yeah, so like that's why they have Ben Affleck playing Batman instead, because
That's a good choice, I think.
yeah. I mean, he's supposed to be older too. He's supposed to be like, oh, he's been retired already for like 5 years or something. So he's coming
from crime fighting.
Yeah, so he's supposed to be like Bruce Wayne, but he's coming out of retirement because like he fears what happens if Superman is kind of left unchecked.
Right.
So
Well, anyway, going back to my preference for superhero movies,
yeah.
I noticed that a lot of them tend to be comedies.
Oh
Because
yeah.
another one that I really, really liked was Mystery Men.
Mm-hmm.
And it
I don't think I've seen that.
Really?
No.
It's I feel like it's a movie that's hard to appreciate if you didn't really grow up with it, and if you
Oh.
didn't watch it at the time.
So like if I were to watch it right now,
you really need to watch with like open eyes.
right?
Well, obviously you're not going to watch with your eyes closed, or open mind.
I'm just gonna close it and I'll listen to it.
An
and it's
open
like, oh,
mind.
this sounds delightful.
Because in that it's very similar to The Mask, because all the conflicts that are in the movie, they feel really, really human, because these guys are not superheroes.
Mhm.
They're just regular guys pretending to be,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So kind of like Kick-Ass in a way. Like, what would you think about Kick-Ass in particular?
I watched Kick-Ass.
Kicked ass. It kicked ass.
I watched Kick-Ass, and at the time I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Like looking back on it, maybe a
Looking back
little
on
less
it,
so.
I feel like it tried to be a lot more than it was. It might just be because I don't really like. I'm sorry, but I don't really like Matthew Vaughn as a director.
Oh, okay.
Like his style of, especially with the fight scenes, it gets kind of tiring to me.
Yeah.
That's why I can't really watch it, like a lot of it.
Yeah.
Like I watched Kingsman once, like
Mhm.
a couple weeks ago, and I was like, okay, I'm not gonna watch this again.
One and done.
Even though that fight scene in the church is probably the best scene I've seen in a long time.
yeah. It's hard.
Did you watch it?
Kick-Ass?
No, Kingsman.
No. Oh no, I didn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, that one scene is really good.
I'll probably check it out. But I mean, we could talk about fight scenes another time. I mean, it's like, man, I used to do like martial arts
Man, I
short
used to
films
fight
back
all
in
the
college.
time.
I mean,
Yeah.
I used to do
So
martial arts scenes
so
back
hold
in
on.
college.
If you guys want to see Will
Oh God, no.
in the martial arts
No.
movie
Oh no.
premiered what? Maybe in like 2008 or something.
No, even earlier than that. It was
2006,
like
7?
this was like 2006. We were doing those movies. I
Good
was
Lord.
like I was like a freshman or a sophomore in college.
Yeah, it's called, was it Pwned?
Yeah, Pwned.
Pwned with two exclamation marks.
Yeah. That was our premiere. I was a freshman
it's on
in
YouTube
college.
by
Oh,
The Breakfast
God.
Machine.
Yes, The Breakfast Machine on YouTube. So check it out. Shout outs to my old friend roommate Derek, who basically convinced us to single-handedly shoot a bunch of martial arts movies because that's what he liked to watch growing up. So
It was fun.
maybe we'll do an episode about that in the future. Old martial arts movies.
Featuring only your old films.
No, oh God, no.
Oh, anyway,
Back on topic.
going back to Mystery Men, like I said, most of the characters' conflicts just felt really, really human.
yeah,
And that's what I feel is lacking, especially in today's superhero movies, because a lot of these people are no longer human.
yeah, they're
Like,
superhuman.
They're superhuman.
That's
and
the idea.
Like, it's really hard for normal people to care about the conflicts that they go through when they deal with like gods and all
Yeah,
that.
they're like godlike figures at this point.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
a really huge lack of humanity
I
within
think that might be also why they have shows like the television shows that
Yeah.
focus on the more human characters.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
those probably do a very good job. I haven't watched them, but I'm sure they do.
Yeah, like I'm sure like Jessica Jones is that's probably why it was so like applauded when it came out too, and even Daredevil to a degree is like, I mean he's not really a superhero. He's a blind guy who has really good heightened senses, and for the most part, Agents of Shield, it's like those characters are not superhuman. They're all just a bunch of like regular characters, but they're part of like a task force that's designed. It's basically like designed around the Avengers and everything. But still, it's like they're very much human and everything.
They're the office workers of the Avengers.
Kinda, yeah.
Let's see, and then I guess the last one I can talk about for older movies,
Mhm.
older superhero movies, is of course The Incredibles.
Oh,
Which
yes.
I think I don't know if that is even considered if that should even be considered part of superhero conversations, just because it's a
Well, why
Pixar
not?
movie. It's a Pixar movie
So what?
because it's too good.
I mean, it was a superhero movie, but it took place in a world of superheroes. And
Yeah.
it's like, but the funny thing is that kind of flipped. Like you were talking about how Mystery Men, Mystery Men just now, where they're basically just a bunch of regular people who
who
They're
are
very
trying to
yeah,
be superheroes.
they're very human. Whereas you flip that idea on its head.
Yeah,
It's a world
It's the exact opposite.
Exactly. It's a world of superheroes, and then you're focusing on the very human
Yeah,
aspects
this
of everyday
family
life.
who's trying not to be super.
Exactly.
Trying to hide that.
I loved The Incredibles when it first came out too. Like when I saw that movie twice in the first week, because it was like, that is so
I was
good.
first in line on opening day.
Yeah, don't you have
at
like
7 p.m.
You have like the sweatshirt from The Incredibles or something like that?
I had
Or
a T-shirt of it.
Used to wear that all the time.
I know. But yeah, like you said, it does flip it on its head, and it kind of turns heroics and superpowers into what is evil.
Yeah.
Because this whole family is trying to just be normal, and the one that's trying to disrupt everything is this guy who idolized Mr. Incredible and
Yeah.
wants everyone to have superpowers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know it's almost hard to really like say too much about it, because it's just like it kind of speaks for itself in that sense.
I know, it embodies pretty much everything that I was talking about. How there's not a lot of humanity in today's movies, but if you look back at that was just all. It was about a freaking family.
Yeah.
And pretty much anyone could relate to that family and what each of their characters were going through. Like there were some
Exactly.
scenes in there that are just really, really intense as far as domestic issues go.
Yeah.
Like when Helen and Bob are like arguing with each other, and then the kids are there and they have to explain to them what exactly is going on in their lives.
Exactly. It's a situation that you don't need like it to take to be in the context of a superhero movie.
Yeah, but it just makes
Yeah.
it better that way. I feel.
Exactly.
Oh, and speaking of which, Incredibles 2, are you
Yes,
excited?
I am super excited.
2019.
Damn, I wish it was earlier than that because
I
I
know.
really, really want to see it.
You know what that means, though, right?
What was that?
That. Well, I did the math in here. It's almost right, but that means the first Incredibles movie would have been the halfway point in my life. That's
Dang,
a long time.
That is a long time.
It's actually 17 years from my birth to Incredibles, and then another 15 years from that to the second movie. But
Damn.
it's close enough.
Yeah, but damn.
That's just how I'm gonna measure my life from now on. How far away it is until the next Incredibles movie.
It's okay. I think after this, I'm done counting. After this year, but that's all right. But I can't wait for that. I mean, just like I still can't wait for all those other like Marvel movies that are coming out in the future too. What is it? Doctor Strange this year. I think that's the first one coming up
Oh boy.
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
I still feel like they should have gone with Liam Neeson. when they were going through all the cast,
Yeah.
the cast prospective cast members for it.
Yeah, he
would have
gets to
made
play another mystical old man figure, just like good old Qui-Gon Jinn.
I didn't know that was Liam Neeson until a lot
What?
longer. Well, mostly because I didn't know who he was back then.
Oh, okay.
And then as I grew up and I figured out, Liam Neeson is this person.
Yeah,
And I look back at these films, it never really registered with me.
yeah. It's also, man, proved he can be an action hero in Taken.
And Taken 2, and
Yeah.
Taken 3, and The Gray, and Unstoppable.
Hey, The Gray, that was a pretty badass movie, actually. Fighting off all them wolves and shit.
Wolves?
That was great.
Whew.
Damn, that
Okay,
was-
well, I think we
Yeah.
should wrap this up here. We've
Right.
been going on for quite a while.
I know, man. I think we spent a lot more time talking about Deadpool, I think, than we intended. But
Well, that's okay.
just goes to show. I mean, it was a really good movie, man. It was a really
Or
engaging.
it was a really interesting movie.
Interesting. Okay, that'd be a better.
It was a
word.
really conversation-worthy movie.
Yeah, there are just some movies that you go see in theaters and you like. Did you like that? Yeah. Did you? Yeah, it was all right.
And
Then
then you
after-
never talk about it again for the
Exactly.
rest of your lives.
Exactly.
Like I'm pretty sure there are tons of movies that I have completely forgotten. They have dropped out of my memory forever.
Cowboys versus Aliens.
I said dropped out.
Damn.
Why you gotta do that for?
Made you think about it again.
It's like the game. You
don't-
just lost.
Oh no, because you thought about the game. All right, bring it back to our final round.
Mm-hmm.
Final round.
Speaking of final rounds,
yeah.
did you get Street Fighter V yet?
No, not yet, because as much as we were talking about it the last week, I think with the way that they've released that they have, with the content that is there right now, I don't
Mhm.
really know if I want to go out and pay the $60 for it right now. Because for me, I mean, I really like having like single player modes to play.
Oh,
like
right.
story mode trials.
I
Things
was
like
gonna
that.
mention that they included like a pretty robust single player, but I guess it's not out yet.
It's not available till like June
I think it said March.
or March or something like that. But that's how are you supposed to like earn enough fight money to
Well, you
unlock
just
the
play
characters?
online.
God, but their online's supposed to be like a little buggy, like with the matchmaking and everything.
I haven't seen anything about that yet. I played it like for a couple hours just with one of my friends.
Oh, there you go. But I've seen quite a few videos about like people like who bought the game and they're really mad about the lack of content that's available, and the content that is available is not that great. So I'm kind of withholding on that a little bit for now because I have enough games to play without having to go out and spend another $60 on a game that
Yeah.
I've heard is not really worth the money right now.
Well, I'll spend it just because, especially when it comes to fighting games,
Yeah.
or like I've mentioned this before on the show, but it's good to get into a competitive game early.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
If you're interested in progressing in skill with that, because you level up with everyone else instead of being thrown in later on when everyone just goes in and smashes you to bits
Exactly.
right away.
So I'll just bring my stick next week and we could play. We could play a couple rounds.
Yeah, we play right now. Well, maybe later.
Yeah. Well, what else have you been up to other than playing Street Fighter?
Well, I have been taking it all the way back to 1999.
Yeah?
Just playing a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Yes.
Oh my god! Because I just realized that a couple of people have started an open source. I'm not sure if it's an open source, but basically an open mod for it.
Oh, really?
And so that they've been redoing the code for the game like continuously for the last 6 months or so. So as long as you have the actual game, you can download this client
Oh,
it's called
okay.
Open RCT 2.
Mm-hmm.
And what does it unlocks like a bunch of it basically unlocks a bunch of different stuff, like things that just basically enhancements to the game that they never had in there in the first place.
Oh, okay. So you
Like,
could do a lot more with it.
yeah, like removing limits and having like built-in like custom cheats and all this
Mhm.
stuff. But I mean, I haven't really been using it to its full potential because I've just been enjoying playing it again, getting
Yeah.
that wave of nostalgia
Nostalgia.
that everyone likes having, knowing that this game might never be, nothing might ever come to being as good as this game ever again.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was kind of like what Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, wasn't that like the kind of the highlight of the series?
2 was
like the best
It's what
one.
made it perfect, and then 3, 3D and stuff is like it wasn't made by the original creators anymore.
Yeah.
And
Kind of
then
lost a little bit
4,
of charm.
oh god, I'm not even gonna talk about 4.
Just doesn't exist. Doesn't
And
exist
then the
in
new
game.
one that's coming out, I don't know what they're gonna do with it. I'm very scared. But as long as I have the Open RCT 2, it's really, really nice. Like I would recommend you getting it if you want to like jump back into Roller Coaster Tycoon, because you can
Yeah.
play multiplayer with that.
Oh, seriously?
You can have servers with like up to 16 people building all at once.
Oh,
It's
that's sweet.
I haven't tried
actually.
that yet, but it seems like really a whole lot of fun.
We'll have to check that out. Maybe we can even do like an in-gaming of that or something
Ooh.
for our
okay.
YouTube channel.
Oh my god, I can't imagine. You're just gonna be destroying my patrons, just
I'm
launching
just
them
gonna-
off of
yeah,
off of walls into water and everything.
That's what I like to do in Roller Coaster Tycoon. I wanted to. I would save the game first, obviously, so I can go back and do the real things. But yeah, I would basically see like how much of a death trap can I make, and how much would
Yeah.
people pay to ride it.
You and everyone else that played the game, I'm sure.
And then of course, obviously I would basically set it so that most of the soda machines would just give you mostly ice, so that they'd be paying money.
You played 3 then, right?
I think so. I think
that was on 3.
I played 2 and 3. I remember because I had copies of those back in the days, but.
Yeah, 3 has its moments, like with things
Yeah.
like that. You can customize it kind of neatly.
Yeah, you could really, really micromanage a lot in that game, I think. But after a while, too, it's like you just stop really caring about all that.
Yeah,
you just
like
wanna,
2,
you just wanna
1 and
build
2
everything.
had its charm, which is what I really liked about it. Just the look of it, just the isometric view. It
Yeah.
made it seem like almost like a toy box. Oh, I'm gonna go back to that later tonight, maybe.
Yeah, good times, man.
And as for you,
Oh,
William,
as for me, I mean, really, like, I haven't done too much different lately, but I am going to, I think, go home and watch the lovely Valentine's gift that my girlfriend gave me last weekend. Oh, I
what
did.
was it?
So I don't think I mentioned it, but I'm a really big fan of the Criterion Collection.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned it to me plenty of times.
Yeah, they're for people out there who don't know, they're kind of they're a company who they put out very premium edition releases of certain movies, mostly foreign films like French and Italian and Japanese movies, and like they're big premium sets. So they have like a lot of like extras. Usually they have a whole second disc full of extras.
Yeah.
They have like commentary, they have essays. Like I think a copy of a movie I bought last week actually even came with like a full-fledged novel of it too.
Good lord.
Came with the original novel.
And
which I'm
they
reading.
also have their alternate box arts for all of them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
That's the best part.
The box art, yeah, or like the fake box art is hilarious too. I almost feel like printing out a lot of those to
and just hanging them up.
yeah, just putting them up. Why not? But so the thing is, it really is a collection because like all of the spines have like numbers on them, much like comics or trade
Yeah.
paperbacks. So I've been kind of trying to collect a lot of them, especially in like the older ones, like the first 100. And so my girlfriend actually gave me she went out and got me the very first one, the very first DVD number 1, which has been out of print for I think a couple of years now.
Ooh.
It's insanely expensive. I mean, those DVDs are already about $40 or so retail price.
Yeah.
But I think like once they go out of print, you probably wind up paying as much as like $80 to $100 for one of those. And she went out and got me number 1, Grand Illusion by this French director Jean Renoir. So I kind of want to go back and watch that. It's like an old French movie from 1932 about World War II.
How could it be about World War II?
Oh, 1938. Sorry,
I was
or
like,
World War One. I guess the World War One movie.
This is a time-traveling Frenchman movie.
I know you just gave me this look in your head, like how is that?
Don't try to pull the
work?
wool over my eyes. I
Yes,
know
okay,
my
so-
history.
It's a 1938 French film about World War One, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I actually really want to watch it tonight.
Good.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. That was enough old stuff that we threw in there for this episode, right?
Went all the way back to 1938.
1938.
Before World War One.
See,
Before World War II happened.
yeah, exactly. We brought it all the way back to 1938, and sticking with the title of our podcast here, retroactive, not contemporary active. So, with that being said, I think that's about as much time as we got for this week's episode.
Yeah. If you enjoyed what you heard, if your brains smiled at us talking into your ear, yeah, you can give us a like or subscribe on iTunes.
Yeah.
Or also on what?
Also on Libsyn. I don't know if you
Libsyn,
can subscribe on
Stitcher, all these other ones
Stitcher.
that I've signed up for.
Oh, and of course also on our YouTube page. If you are listening to this through our Sick Aya page here
Yeah.
on YouTube.
If you made it this far, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate the feedback, especially like over these last 4 episodes this whole month. You know, it's been a very new and different project
Yeah,
for me and Joey, and I think we can both say we are very much enjoying this. Actually,
I am.
I'll
say that much.
Yeah, meeting up every week and making coffee and talking here inside
In
of
the
this
sweat
closet.
lodge.
Yeah, starting to feel that way now. That's probably why we just kind of want to.
We're gonna end this. That's
So,
why.
So we will see y'all, or well, I guess we won't see you, but you'll hear us next week.
On RetroActive. See you guys.
Later.